Commander Jake Morrison was drinking his morning coffee when the alarm started ringing. The sound echoed through the bridge of the Hughes Valiant, making everyone jump. Jake put down his cup and looked at the communication officer. "What is it, Amy?" He asked Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez. Amy was staring at her screen with wide eyes. "Sir, we are getting a signal from outside our solar system. It is not from any human ship or station." Jake walked over to her station. The message was playing over and over again. The voice speaking was clearly not human. It sounded afraid and desperate. "Please, anyone who can hear this message," the alien voice said through the translator. "This is Ambassador Kethver of the Zilani Republic. Our worlds are under attack. By the Harvester Collective, they are eating everything. Our cities, our forests, our people. The Galactic Federation Council has left us to die. They say we are an acceptable loss for the greater good." Jake felt his stomach twist as he listened. The alien was begging for help. "We know humans are considered dangerous by the other species in the galaxy," the voice continued. "Your world is called a death world by everyone else. But we are desperate. If you have any kindness in your hearts, if you have any honor, please help us. We are sending you the location of our home system. Please, someone help us." The message ended with numbers showing where the Zilani lived. It was 47 light years away from Earth. "How old is this message?" Jake asked. Amy checked her computer. "Based on how weak the signal is, I think it was sent about 6 weeks ago, sir. Maybe longer. 6 weeks." Jake knew that was a very long time when you were under attack. The situation was probably much worse now. "Open a channel to Earth Command," Jake ordered. Back on Earth, Admiral Carl Patterson was having a normal morning until his communication device started beeping urgently. He answered it to find Commander Morrison on the screen, looking serious. "Admiral, we need to talk right away," Jake said. 20 minutes later, Admiral Patterson was in a meeting room with the most important people in Earth's military and government. The room was full of generals, scientists, and diplomats. Everyone looked worried as they listened to the alien message again. Dr. Helen Carter was Earth's top expert on alien species. She stood up and turned on a holographic display that showed information about the Harvester Collective. "According to the records we got from the Galactic Federation, the Harvesters are machines," she explained. "They travel from star system to star system and strip mine entire planets. They take everything useful and leave nothing behind. They have been doing this for a very long time, moving through the outer edge of the galaxy. And the big alien governments just let them do this?" asked General Bob Harris. "The major powers in the galaxy redirect the Harvesters towards smaller, weaker species," Dr. Carter said sadly. "It keeps the Harvesters away from the important worlds." Admiral Patterson frowned. "What do we know about these Zilani people?" "They are peaceful plant eaters," Dr. Carter continued. "They are amazing at turning dead planets into beautiful garden worlds. They can make a barren rock bloom with life in just 1 generation, but they do not have much of a military. They have always depended on the Federation to protect them." Captain Lisa Hayes commanded Earth's newest stealth ship, the UE Shadow. She leaned forward in her chair. "Sir, the Zilani helped us during the Proxima incident. They did not have to, but they saved over 3,000 human lives." The room became quiet. Everyone remembered the terrorist attack on the space stations around Proxima Centauri. When the bombs went off, the Zilani were the first aliens to come help. Their ships risked everything to pull human survivors from the wreckage. "They could have just watched us die," Captain Hayes continued, "but they risked their own people to save ours. They are good people, Admiral." Admiral Patterson stood up slowly. He looked around the room at all the faces watching him. These were Earth's best military leaders, and he could see they were all thinking the same thing. "The Federation abandoned the Zilani because they think the Zilani do not matter," Patterson said. "But we do not abandon our friends. We do not leave good people to die just because it is convenient. He turned to face the large screen that showed Earth floating in space. The galaxy thinks we are too violent, too dangerous. They call our world a death world because they think we are savages. Maybe it is time to show them what Deathworlders do when their friends are in trouble. Patterson looked back at his officers. Begin mobilization immediately. We are going to war. The next 3 days were the busiest in human military history. Ships that were scattered across the solar system rushed back to Earth. The orbital shipyards worked around the clock to prepare every vessel for combat. Supply ships loaded weapons, food, and medical supplies. The HFY Valiant would lead the fleet. With it would come 6 heavy cruisers, 12 destroyers, and 3 support carriers. But the most important cargo was something no other species in the galaxy had: Marines. These were not just any soldiers. These were men and women who had trained their entire lives to fight in the worst conditions imaginable. They could survive in the vacuum of space, fight in crushing gravity, and adapt to any environment. They were products of Earth's harsh world. And they were about to show the galaxy what that meant. Staff Sergeant Tony Miller was checking his equipment when his captain called all the Marines together. They gathered in the cargo bay of the HFY Ranger, their faces serious as they listened. "Listen up, Marines," Captain Dan Foster said. "We are going to fight an enemy that has been terrorizing the galaxy for centuries. They are machines that adapt to whatever weapons are used against them. They learn fast and they do not give up." A young private raised his hand. "Sir, if they adapt to weapons, how do we fight them?" Captain Foster smiled, but it was not a happy smile. "We fight them the way humans have always fought. We improvise, we adapt, we overcome. And if that does not work, we hit them harder until something breaks." The Marines cheered. They were not afraid of machines that learned. They were from Earth, where everything tried to kill you from the day you were born. They had been preparing for this fight their entire lives. As the human fleet prepared to leave the solar system, they received one more message from the Zilani system. This one was even weaker than the first, barely strong enough to reach Earth. "This is Kethver again," the alien voice whispered. "If anyone received our message, please hurry. They have taken 2 of our worlds completely. The others are surrounded. We are running out of time. Please, if you are coming, come quickly." Admiral Patterson gave the order that would change galactic history forever. "All ships, jump to hyperspace. We are going to show the galaxy what happens when you mess with our friends." The human fleet disappeared into the darkness between stars, carrying with them the hopes of an entire species and the fury of Earth's children. The human fleet was the largest group of warships Earth had ever sent into space. 72 hours after Admiral Patterson gave the order, 21 ships were ready to jump to hyperspace. The HFY Valiant led the way, followed by 6 heavy cruisers that could punch holes through asteroids. 12 destroyers moved around them like guard dogs, fast and deadly. 3 big support carriers held the supplies and the Marines. But the real power of the fleet was not in the ships. It was in the people aboard them. Staff Sergeant Tony Miller stood in front of his squad in the cramped briefing room of the HFY Ranger. The room smelled like metal and recycled air. 20 Marines sat on hard benches, their faces lit by the blue glow of the holographic display. The display showed images that would give most civilized aliens nightmares. Harvester drones looked like metal spiders the size of small cars. They had 6 legs ending in sharp claws, and arms that could change into different weapons. Their heads were covered in red sensors that glowed like evil eyes. "Listen up, Marines," Miller said in his loud sergeant voice. "These things are tough. They are smart. They learn fast. Every time someone fights them, they get better at fighting." Back, Private First Class Ryan Cook raised his hand. He was young and new, but he asked good questions. "Sergeant, The intelligence reports say these machines adapt to normal weapons really fast. The Federation troops found that their energy weapons stopped working after just a few fights. Miller grinned. It was the kind of smile that meant trouble. For someone. That is why we are not using energy weapons, Cook. We are going old school. Bullets, bombs, and good old human creativity. Miller walked over to a big metal locker and opened it. Inside were weapons that made the Marines whistle with appreciation. There were railgun rifles that could shoot metal slugs faster than lightning. There were plasma grenades that burned hotter than stars. And there were some new weapons that even the Marines had never seen before. "What are those?" asked Corporal Maria Santos, pointing at some strange-looking guns. "Gravitational pulse weapons," Miller said proudly. "The science boys just finished making them. They mess with gravity in a small area. Imagine getting hit by a black hole the size of a baseball." The Marines looked at each other with excitement. These were weapons that could break anything. Meanwhile, in the science section of the fleet, Dr. Kate Sullivan was working day and night with her team. They were studying everything they could find about harvester technology. What they learned was both amazing and terrifying. Dr. Sullivan was tired. She had been awake for 36 hours straight, drinking coffee and staring at computer screens. But she had found something important. "Commander Morrison," she said into her communication device. "I need to see you right away." 10 minutes later, Morrison was in the science lab. The room was full of computers and holographic displays showing alien diagrams. Dr. Sullivan looked excited despite being exhausted. "Sir, these harvesters are not just machines," she said. "They are part computer and part living organism. That is why they can adapt so quickly. They are actually evolving while they fight." Morrison frowned. "What does that mean for us?" "It means they are designed to learn from organized attacks," Sullivan explained. "They study how their enemies fight, then they change to counter those tactics. But here's the thing, sir. They expect their enemies to fight in logical, organized ways. And humans do not fight that way," Morrison said, understanding. "Exactly," Sullivan said with a tired smile. "We do not follow the rules. We improvise. We do crazy things that do not make sense. That is what makes us dangerous." As the fleet traveled through hyperspace toward the Zilani system, they got more bad news. The scout ship Hughes Whisper had gone ahead to see what was happening. Captain Danny Kim's report was not good. Kim's face appeared on the main screen of the Valiant. He looked upset and angry. "Admiral Patterson, the situation is worse than we thought. The harvesters have completely destroyed 2 of the 7 Zilani worlds. I mean completely. There is nothing left but empty space and metal debris." The bridge crew was quiet. Destroying an entire planet was something that most species could not even imagine. "The other 5 worlds are surrounded," Kim continued. "The harvesters have built huge factories in space around each planet. They are slowly eating the planets piece by piece. I can see massive refugee ships trying to escape, but harvester interceptors are hunting them down." Admiral Patterson's voice came through the communication system. "How many refugees?" "Millions, sir. Maybe tens of millions. They are packed into ships that were never meant to carry so many people. Some of the ships are breaking down. If we do not get there soon, they are all going to die." Patterson did not hesitate. "All ships, prepare for emergency combat deployment. We are going in hot." The human fleet began to change formation as they prepared to drop out of hyperspace. The destroyers moved to the front, ready to fight immediately. The heavy cruisers spread out to cover more space. The carriers moved to the back where they could launch fighters and protect the support ships. On the U.E.'s Hammer, Lieutenant Commander Pete Johnson was talking to his crew. The destroyer was small compared to the cruisers, but it was fast and deadly. Johnson had been in the military for 15 years, and he had never seen his crew so ready to fight. "People, we are about to face an enemy that has been terrorizing The galaxy for centuries, Johnson said over the ship's communication system. They think they are unbeatable because they can adapt to any weapon, any tactic, but they have never fought humans before. In the weapons bay, the crew was loading the railgun batteries. These were not energy weapons that the harvesters could adapt to. These were simple kinetic weapons that threw chunks of metal at incredible speeds. No amount of adaptation could stop a piece of tungsten moving at half-light speed. They picked on herbivores, Johnson continued. They thought they could just walk in and take what they wanted because the Zilani are peaceful. Well, they are about to learn that the Zilani have friends. And those friends are from a death world. Back on the Valiant, Commander Morrison was getting final reports from all the ships. Everyone was ready. The Marines were armed and eager to fight. The ship crews were at battle stations. The fighters were fueled and loaded with weapons. "Sir," said Lieutenant Rodriguez from the communication station, "we are getting another signal. From the Zilani system, it is very weak." The message played on the bridge speakers. Ambassador Kethver's voice was even more desperate than before. "To anyone who might be listening, this is our final transmission. The harvesters have begun the final assault on our home world. Our orbital defenses are gone. Our evacuation ships are being destroyed as fast as we can launch them. In a few hours, our civilization will be extinct. We tried to be good people. We tried to help others when we could. We hope someone remembers us." The message ended. The bridge was completely silent. Morrison looked around at his crew. They were all thinking the same thing. They were too late. The Zilani were going to die before the human fleet could reach them. "Admiral," Morrison said into his communication device, "we need to go faster." Patterson's voice came back immediately. "All ships, maximum hyperspace velocity. Damn the engine safety protocols. We are not going to let our friends die." The human fleet pushed their engines beyond safe limits. The ships shook and groaned as they moved faster than they were designed to go. But they kept going, because that is what humans do. When their friends are in trouble, they do not give up. They do not play it safe. They risk everything to help. The people they care about. The harvesters were about to learn what happens when you threaten the friends of a death world species. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Zilani system like angry gods coming to war. What they saw made even the toughest Marines feel sick. 2 planets were completely gone. Where beautiful worlds had once spun around there there was nothing but empty space filled with metal debris. The harvesters had eaten them down to nothing. The other 5 planets were surrounded by massive metal structures that looked like mechanical spiders wrapped around dying prey. These were the harvester processing stations, and they glowed red-hot from the work of turning entire worlds into raw materials. "Dear God," whispered Navigator Beth Collins as she stared at her screen, "they are literally eating the planets." "Commander." Morrison felt anger building in his chest like a fire. These machines had destroyed entire worlds full of innocent people. They had to be stopped. "All ships, this is Morrison," he said into the fleet communication system. "We have civilians under attack. Our first job is to rescue survivors then. We make these metal monsters pay. Remember, we are not just fighting for the Zilani. We are showing the galaxy what happens when you hurt our friends." The first fight started when harvester interceptors came to challenge the human fleet. The alien machines were fast and deadly. They moved in perfect formation, like a swarm of metal wasps. Their weapons were bright beams of energy that could cut through most ship armor, but the harvesters had never fought humans before. While the main harvester fleet focused on the human battle group, they did not notice the small stealth ships slipping around behind them. Captain Lisa Hayes commanded 3 stealth frigates that were almost invisible to enemy sensors. "Shadow Team, this is Captain Hayes," she said to her small fleet. "We are in position behind their command ship. Time for Operation Sucker Punch." The harvester command ship was huge, the size of a small moon. It controlled all the other machines in the system through quantum communication links. It thought it was safe in the middle of its fleet. The torpedoes from the human stealth ships hit the command ship before it knew they were there. The explosions were not big, but they were precisely placed. The command ship's main computer cores went dark. Suddenly, thousands of harvester drones lost their coordination. "Now we have them," Morrison said with satisfaction. "All ships, attack. Formation Alpha. Let us show them what Deathworlders can do." Lieutenant Commander Pete Johnson was commanding the destroyer U.E.'s Hammer. His ship was small, but it was fast and packed with weapons. "All batteries, focus fire on the big one," he ordered his crew. "Show these machines what happens when they pick on herbivores." The Hammer's railgun batteries fired with the sound of thunder. Solid tungsten projectiles, accelerated to incredible speeds, struck the harvester formation. The alien machines had adapted their armor to stop energy weapons, but kinetic weapons were different. The metal slugs punched through their hulls like bullets through paper. The harvesters tried to adapt, but every time they changed their tactics, the humans changed theirs too. When the machines learned to avoid the railguns, the humans switched to missile attacks. When they adapted to missiles, the humans used plasma cannons. The harvesters could not keep up with the constant changes, but the real shock came when the Marines went into action. The harvesters had conquered dozens of species over the centuries. They were used to finding helpless victims when they boarded ships. They expected the same thing when they broke into the Zilani refugee vessels. Instead, they found Staff Sergeant Tony Miller and his squad waiting for them. The refugee ship's cargo bay was dark and cramped. Frightened Zilani families huddled behind metal containers, their large eyes wide with terror. The harvester boarding party came through the hull like metal spiders, their claws sparking against the floor. "Welcome to the party," Miller said as he stepped out of the shadows. The harvesters had never seen anything like human Marines before. These creatures wore armor that looked crude compared to advanced alien technology, but they moved with deadly confidence. And their weapons were completely unknown. Miller triggered his gravitational pulse weapon. The device created a localized gravity field that was thousands of times stronger than normal. The harvester drones, their adaptive systems completely unprepared for physics-based attacks, were crushed flat against the bulkheads. "Marines, advance," Miller ordered. The battle spread throughout the Zilani system as more human ships arrived. The harvesters kept trying to use their standard tactics, but nothing worked against the chaotic human approach. Captain Danny Kim's scout ship, UESA, whisper darted between the massive harvester processing stations like a bee buzzing around giants. His crew was planting explosive charges on critical systems. "This is Whisper to all ships," Kim reported. "We have found the central processing nexus. It is the brain that controls the entire harvesting operation. It is heavily defended, but if we can destroy it, all the machines in the system will shut down." The nexus was a nightmare of living metal and crystal processors. It was protected by thousands of drones and surrounded by energy shields. Any sane species would have called it impossible to attack. Fortunately, humans had never been accused of being sane. "Valiant to all ships," Morrison announced over the communication system. "We are going to ram that thing." There was silence on the communication channels. Then, one by one, every ship captain in the fleet acknowledged the order. They were going to fly their ships directly into a heavily defended space fortress. And somehow, they were all okay with that idea. Dr. Kate Sullivan was monitoring the battle from the Valiant Science Station. Her sensors showed her something amazing. "Commander, the harvesters are trying to adapt to our attack patterns, but they cannot do it fast enough. We are changing tactics faster than they can process the changes. That is because we are not following any plan," Morrison replied as he held onto his chair during a violent maneuver. "We are making it up as we go along." And that was the truth. While other species fought according to military doctrine and established tactics, humans just did whatever seemed like a good idea at the time. It was insane, illogical, and completely unpredictable. It was also incredibly effective. The harvesters, for the first time in their long existence, began to experience something they had never felt before: fear. Not the simple threat assessment that guided their normal behavior, but real, primal fear of these impossible creatures from the death world called Earth. Private Ryan Cook found himself separated from his squad inside one of the processing stations. The corridors were filled with the sound of grinding machinery and the screams of dying metal. Harvester drones hunted him through the maze of passages. Cook was scared, but he was also angry. These machines had destroyed entire worlds full of innocent people. They had to pay for that. When 3 harvester drones cornered him in a dead-end corridor, Cook did what any human would do. He improvised. The maintenance panel beside him contained the station's power distribution system. Cook ripped it open and jammed his combat knife into the main power coupling. The entire section lost power, trapping the harvester drones in the darkness. "You want some?" Cook shouted at the disabled machines. "Come and get some!" The battle raged for 18 hours. Human ships rammed harvester platforms with reckless abandon. Marines fought through enemy stations with weapons that defied all logical expectations. And slowly, inevitably, the harvesters began to lose. They had conquered the galaxy by being smarter and more adaptable than their enemies. But they had never faced an enemy that was too crazy to be predicted, too stubborn to give up, and too angry to be reasoned with. They had never faced humans. The final attack on the Harvester Nexus became a story that would be told across the galaxy for 1,000 years. The Hughes Valiant, its hull glowing with energy shields, smashed through the defensive formations like a hammer through glass. Behind it, the rest of the human fleet followed, their weapons blazing with deadly light. The Nexus was enormous, bigger than most space stations. It looked like a giant mechanical brain made of black metal and pulsing crystal. Thousands of harvester drones swarmed around it like angry insects protecting their hive. Dr. Kate Sullivan watched her instruments with amazement as the battle unfolded. "Commander Morrison, the harvesters are trying to predict our next move. But their computers cannot keep up. We are changing our attack pattern faster than they can understand it." "That is because we do not have a pattern," Morrison replied, ducking as sparks flew from a damaged control panel. "We are just hitting them with everything we have and seeing what works." The boarding action that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Staff Sergeant Tony Miller led his Marines through the Nexus corridors like a force of nature. Behind him came soldiers carrying weapons that seemed designed by someone with a twisted sense of humor and no respect for safety. "Contact front," shouted Corporal Maria Santos as a group of harvester drones appeared around a corner. These machines were bigger than the ones they had fought before. With thicker armor and more weapons. Santos responded by pulling out a device that looked like a metal box with too many buttons. She pressed the big red one in the middle. The device created an electromagnetic pulse that fried the machines' circuits while also releasing a cloud of metal particles that blocked their sensors. "Nice toys, Santos," Miller said with approval. "Where did you get that?" "Made it myself, Sergeant," Santos replied proudly. "Used parts from the ship's microwave and some stuff from the engine room." The harvesters had never encountered enemies who built weapons out of kitchen appliances. Their adaptive systems had no idea how to counter attacks from devices that should not have existed. Meanwhile, the Zalani refugees watched in awe as their rescuers fought with a fury that seemed superhuman. Ambassador Kethver was safely aboard the UES Ranger, but he could see the battle through the ship's windows. Human vessels were ramming harvester platforms without hesitation, their crews willing to die to save people they had never met. "Your people are sacrificing themselves for us," Kethver said to Captain Lisa Hayes, tears running down his furry face. Why would you do this? We are not even the same species. Hayes looked out at the battle, where human ships were fighting against impossible odds. Because it is the right thing to do, she said simply. Because someone has to stand up to bullies. And because we are too stubborn to know when we should give up. The moment that decided everything happened deep inside the Nexus. Private first. Class Ryan Cook had gotten separated from his unit during the boarding action. He was lost in a maze of corridors that pulsed with alien technology. Cook was scared, tired, and running out of ammunition. But he kept moving forward because that was what Marines did. They did not give up, no matter how bad things got. He found himself in a huge chamber at the heart of the Nexus. The walls were covered with crystalline structures that glowed with soft blue light. In the center of the room stood a massive crystal formation that reached from floor to ceiling. It pulsed with energy, and Cook could hear a sound like whispers coming from inside it. This was the central processing core of the entire Harvester operation, the brain that controlled millions of machines across dozens of star systems. It was beautiful in an alien way, but Cook knew it was also responsible for the deaths of billions of innocent people. The crystal brain noticed Cook's presence. Suddenly, the whispers became louder, more urgent. Harvester drones began pouring into the chamber from hidden passages. Cook looked at the approaching enemies, then at the crystal brain, then at the single grenade clipped to his belt. It was just a simple chemical explosive, the kind of primitive weapon that most civilized species had stopped using centuries ago. "Hey, you overgrown calculator," Cook said to the processing core. "Try to adapt to this." He pulled the pin from the grenade and threw it at the base of the crystal formation. The explosion was small by cosmic standards, but it hit the Nexus at exactly the right spot. Cracks spread through the crystal like lightning, and the blue glow began to flicker. Damage spread through the Nexus's quantum-linked systems like a virus. Across the Zelani system, Harvester drones simply stopped moving as their controlling intelligence went dark. Massive processing stations powered down. Interceptor ships drifted helplessly through space. The Harvesters, a threat that had terrorized the galaxy for centuries, were defeated by a young human with a simple grenade and the courage to use it. 3 days later, Admiral Carl Patterson arrived with reinforcements to find the Zelani system transformed. The Harvester processing stations had been converted into temporary hospitals and refugee centers. Human engineers worked alongside Zelani terraformers to begin the long process of fixing the damaged worlds. "Status report," Patterson requested as he boarded the battle-scarred Valiant. Commander Morrison looked exhausted. His uniform was torn and dirty, and his face was covered with soot from the fighting, but he was smiling. "Mission accomplished. Admiral, the Harvesters are finished, the Zelani are safe, and we only lost 8 ships and 400 crew members." "Only 400, Patterson said quietly. Any other species would consider those losses unacceptable. Any other species would have turned around and gone home when they saw how heavily defended this place was. Morrison replied, "But we are not any other species, sir." The news of humanity's victory spread through the galaxy faster than light. The species that the Galactic Federation had dismissed as violent, barbarians had accomplished something that the combined might of civilized space had declared impossible. The Harvesters were gone, and the Deathworlders had sent them to whatever digital hell awaited broken machines. But perhaps the most important change was in how the galaxy viewed humanity. No longer were they seen as barely controlled savages who might be useful as soldiers. They were the people you called when the impossible needed to be done. When civilization itself was threatened, Ambassador Keffer wrote a report to the Galactic Council that would be studied for generations. "We sent a desperate message into space, not knowing if anyone would hear us or care enough to help. The humans heard us. They came not for glory or profit, but because they are our friends. They risked everything to save people they had never met, simply because it was the right thing to do. The Zelani worlds would be rebuilt. Their gardens would bloom again, their cities would rise from the ashes, and their children would grow up free from the shadow of the harvesters. And they would never forget who had made that possible. As the human fleet prepared to return to Earth, carrying with them the gratitude of an entire species and the grudging respect of the galaxy, one thing was certain. The next time someone threatened humanity's friends, they would remember what happened to the harvesters. After all, Earth was a death world, and Deathworlders protected their own. The galaxy had learned an important lesson. Humans might be crazy, violent, and unpredictable, but they were also loyal, brave, and too stubborn to give up when their friends needed help, and that made them the most dangerous species in the galaxy.